It's not a solo monkey show today. Dusty will be joining us shortly. He's down at Ducks practice through the miracles of technology. He will join us remotely here very quickly. Jeff Rust behind the glass. Right, meow.
Ciao, Belly.
I just have to say, first of all, on a little random side note that nobody really is going to care about, but I'm going to mention it anyways. Brandon Sprague must be deaf. Because every time I sit in this chair after him, these headphones are turned up to 11D. And I always have to go, good God, and crank them all the way back down.
Wow.
Because it's just like, he just must be like, huh? Yeah. At all times. What? I didn't hear you.
What's
it's
funny
because you're deaf.
Well, they always gripe about how loud Swag barks at him.
You would think
through the monitor
they have it down all the way.
Maybe that's part of the problem.
Good Lord. I put my headphones in. I was like, oh, God, that was terrifying. Like, rattled my teeth. That's a little inside baseball. I was out yesterday. Felt like twice fried crap. I'm back. I still don't feel great.
Yeah.
So if I'm lacking energy, I apologize. Them's the breaks. Hopefully this runs its course and I'm done dealing with whatever this nonsense is, and we can move from there. More poignantly and most importantly, I mentioned this last year, and I will mention this every year until I die probably, what today is.
Yes.
It is September 11th, 23 years ago. Selfishly, is one of the single most defining moments in my life. I enlisted in the military the next day. So just want to make sure I take a moment and acknowledge what today is. I know it's crazy thinking that it was 23 years ago, because it's still, it's the most vivid, like, young memory that I have.
Right.
Like, if you're talking about, like, my formative years, I remember everything about that day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nuts to me that when I walk through the Blazers locker room, there's multiple people in there that were not born.
I know, right? That's, yeah.
Scoot, Shaden, now Donovan.
Yeah.
Denny was not born. Denny was not born. He's 23.
Yeah.
Like, you just start thinking about Bari. Like, most of these guys were not born.
Yeah, basically half the team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were not born.
Crazy.
When it happened. So, but anybody that was, I mean, everybody was impacted. Not everybody was affected the same way, but just, shout out to everybody out there. This is one of those days where, you do some thinking, some memorializing, some visiting with yourself, as it were. At least I do. Like I said, it was one of, and it still remains one of the most formative days of my life. What happened the next day set up really the rest of my life. So, with that, there you go.
There we go.
There we go. I mean,
yeah, it's like, how do you pivot away
I don't know how you pivot out of that.
Yeah.
Hey, let's talk Tyreek Hill being a D-hole. Like, it's just, again, the cops are worse. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But good to be back. I don't like missing shows ever. It's not a normal thing for me. So my wife looked at me yesterday after I said I wasn't going in, and she was like, "Oh God, you're not doing well." Like,
yeah.
No, I'm not. I feel like I'm dying on the inside, and I want to die, and it's terrible.
Yeah.
So I'm going to find a way to talk some basketball today, at least twice. Because twice. Or maybe I'll just put it into one segment, and then Dusty will be less mad at me. But we do. It is a rivalry week, as it were. Beavs and Ducks. It's so weird to see it being played in week 3. And obviously Dusty is down in Eugene right now. He's actually heading up to the booth right now, where he will join us here momentarily, I would imagine. And from there, we will get the practice update ahead of Civil War.
Yeah.
But beyond Civil War, we also have the Apple Cup also being played the 3rd week of the season.
Yeah, well, and it's up against the Civil War too. I was trying to rack my brains of if that happens terribly often, and I don't think it does.
So. I think you usually have like one evening, one afternoon, or I don't think they're the same week usually. I think they're usually a week apart.
Well, I think,
isn't Civil War, wasn't it usually second to last week of the year?
I don't think so.
I could
Wait, for Civil War or for the Apple Cup?
Civil War.
No, I was always
Is it always last week?
always last regular season game.
maybe it's Apple Cup is second to last.
Maybe
I just don't feel like they've never been the same week.
Huh? I just feel like they've never been actually up against each other.
Yeah, because
like
it always feels like
TV
one's
window.
at daytime, one's at nighttime.
Yeah,
and they kind of like respect that. You know what's really interesting though is the I don't know, blowing up of the Pac-12 with all of the different rights and everybody, like all the different conferences winning these West Coast teams. All of the West Coast teams just ended up on the late night time slot now.
Yeah.
Like no matter who it is, it's like,
yeah,
you have the afternoon or evening time slot.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Well, I don't know how you couldn't see that coming.
Well, Oregon, Boise State's on, and I'm like, the only game that was still on was USC, Utah State.
Mm-hmm.
It was like 10:30 at night, and that game was still going. And I'm like, how is this game still on when all USC has done is run the ball for the past 20 minutes? Like, can we?
Right.
We got the institution of the 2-minute stoppage clock now in college football. Can we get a running clock?
So we can fit this in under 3.5 hours?
Yeah, it's tough to figure that whole part of it out.
Yes.
So, we do have, obviously, outside of the college football world, we're back to NFL right away.
Yes.
And the team du jour, the Miami Dolphins, will be up Thursday night, which I'm sure is not going to have any kind of enhanced spotlight on it because of what happened to Tyreek Hill.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it won't get brought up at all.
No.
Yeah.
And no, especially with Raheem Mostert out and A-Chain being questionable.
Well, I know they said he came back to practice today anyway. Okay. But yeah, McDaniel was fairly mum on his. He was fairly non-committal on his availability. It looks like we have got Dusty in house here. Let me get him on.
Oh, hey, all right.
Hey guys.
Oh, hi.
Hey.
How's it going?
Oh, it's going splendid. How are you?
I'm good. I'm a little out of breath right now.
How many stairs did you climb?
I climbed a lot. I just ran from the practice field all the way up to the press box up at Autzen Stadium.
Getting your steps in.
Yeah, out of shape.
Yeah,
out of shape, guys.
The press box is not close to the field either.
No, it is not. It is not. But I took an elevator up 5 stories. But
Coward.
Autzen's got the big hill. They don't have stairs. Well, they do, but I'm not even going to try to go up those. They got this big hill that you got to run up.
Oh, it's true.
A long ways.
Yeah, no, you do. I know. That's how I tore a hamstring.
Yeah, yes, you did. Last time you were in this stadium, you in fact pulled a hamstring. That is a true statement right there. How are we doing today? How are you feeling? You're feeling better, obviously?
Better, yes. But if you're watching on YouTube, you can tell I look like haggard hell. So.
Oh, good.
Yeah. No, it's apparently when like 90% of the fluid in your body leaves.
Yeah, not great.
You're just not doing great.
Yeah, sweet.
So, yeah, but I'm not afraid of crapping my pants on the way to work anymore. So.
Oh. Okay. All right. Hope everybody's enjoying their lunch.
Yeah,
that
was the real fear yesterday. That was like, I was like, I could probably do the show, and then it was like, I need to be within 10 seconds of a toilet. So,
not all heroes wear capes.
It was, no, it wasn't like one of those because the drive from Newburgh to here, there's that stretch of I-5 once you hit Twilliger. There's no off ramp.
No,
and it was like, this wasn't a, I could maybe hold this.
Yeah, no, you're not.
No.
I mean,
this was like, you need to be within like immediate access. You cannot accidentally be like, oh, I'm safe, and then have an hour of like, oh, you're okay, and then that 10-second window of you're not okay anymore. So we graduated past that stage. That's
really, it's the small victories in life.
Yes, Vancouver Ford text line. You were always one stomach bug away from your desired weight. Yeah, no, that was a real thing. I got on the scale this morning. I was like, down 5 pounds in a day.
It's a great diet, apparently.
It works. It works wonderfully. I don't know if I don't want the stomach bug that's going to get me down to my desired weight. Because I had food poisoning once that I lost 25 pounds in a week, and that almost killed me. So I don't want to go down that path.
Yeah, let's not have that. Let's not have that at all. No. Nope. All right. Well, the band is back together then. We're all together. Hey, I don't know what you started with at the top of this show, but
nothing but 9/11.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, because I actually came in and they're just wrapping it up right now. When I got here down here this morning, they were doing the 9/11 firefighter stair climb here in Autzen Stadium.
Oh, wow.
And it was incredible to see you have these firefighters all geared up, walking up and down every row, every stair, hitting every stair of Autzen Stadium, and in honor of all of the men and women on 9/11. It's obviously a fundraiser component too, but I went to the 9/11 Museum in New York City back in May, and it's one of those things that I didn't quite know and understand what I was getting myself into when we went there. But if you ever go to New York City, it is a must that you go to the 9/11 Museum. We had a moment in there where they have a picture of every person that lost their life in 9/11, and
it's tough.
Yeah, it really is. And as we were in this room, it's quiet in there, and my wife and I were walking through there, and this guy goes, "There he is," and he pointed to a picture on the wall, and he said, "That's my dad." And he was with his 2 kids who had never met their grandfather.
Oof.
And it was their first time that they had kind of seen that gravity of it. And being in that room in that moment,
it was your soul out.
Oh my goodness. There's so many moments about that museum, the tour, that bring back all of those memories from that day. And I know that we always say never forget 9/11, but this day is the day that every American that was alive will remember it vividly for the rest of their lives.
Yeah,
so
it was one of the things we mentioned is that I brought this up in the locker room last year, like how many guys on the Blazers roster weren't alive.
Yeah,
it's like these guys are all kids that weren't even born when this happened, and it was just like the gravity of that day and what it means, and it truly is nuts.
Yep, it is, and it was it's something that I think the thing that lasts the most in my mind, and what I'll never forget, is the fact that in those days and weeks following it, this country had never been closer.
Yeah.
I mean,
and boy, could we use some of that about now.
Yeah. To have that kind of rallying moment in our nation, it was, your neighbors were actually your neighbors, and they weren't these strangers, and you ended up talking to people that you hadn't talked to before, and it was a wake-up call that, our nation needed at that time. And you sit there and we truly do remember it, maybe we can start galvanizing ourselves together again. So,
indeed.
Yep.
It's almost impossible to pivot out of that.
No. There is no pivot to it. There is no pivot in or out. Yeah. And that's kind of the way it should be, You shouldn't have like that easy way to get in and out of a day like today. So, yeah.
Well, I'll attempt to pivot here. I don't know how deep you guys got into some Civil War stuff yesterday. We want to dive into some ducks since you're down there?
Yeah, I mean, and I think where we got to start this thing off is football is a war of attrition. We say it all the time, and that war of attrition is starting to see its way into the Oregon State Beavers. Big injury on that side of the football. We'll get to that next. Danny Dusty on the Fan.
Oregon Ducks.
All right, Danny and Dusty with you. This is the Split Show edition, but guess what? We got the band back together on the YouTubes. We're YouTubing now, huh? How about that? We're rolling through on the YouTube cameras are all up. You can see my location here. I am in my makeshift studio in Autzen Stadium, which is awesome. And Danny back in his normal position, or not your normal position. You're sitting where I normally sit on these days.
Indeed.
But back in the studios. It is a big week. It's Civil War week. We got a rivalry game, Oregon State and Oregon in Corvallis, 12:30 kick-in. Last night, the news broke, and Beef fans are now saying, uh-oh. Kind of weird to see it, especially in this day and age. Tyler Volton, the left guard, or right guard rather, for the Oregon State Beavers, broke on his Instagram that he is done for the year, suffering a knee injury at San Diego State last week and torn ACL MCL for one of the nation's leading rushing teams in all of college football. Beavs rank, I believe it's 4th in attempts and 5th in yards per game rushing the football, and they lose a starting right guard for the season.
It's interesting that he himself chose the path the opposite of the San Francisco 49ers in that he decided to actually disclose an injury when he was supposed to, as opposed to not doing it at all and lying through their teeth. I don't know how much you guys touched on that yesterday. I genuinely hope the 49ers get hit with the biggest possible fine known to man.
The NFL will not investigate it.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, but they do have enough wiggle room in that he was listed as questionable, and they can, if questionable is essentially a 50-50, he will or will not play. It was, and I felt awful for Jordan Mason because he just, either he misspoke or they told him he was going to start on Friday, and like the 49ers can also say, yeah, we told him he's going to start, but that doesn't mean McCaffrey wasn't going to play.
Sure.
And that's all. But that's all they need to say.
Yeah.
And that covers their bases and it covers their rear. So I don't believe it, but at the same time, that's why the NFL is going to say, well, there's nothing much we can do about it. But as it pertains to Oregon State, I mean, this is a big one. Flavio Gonzalez is going to step in. He's a senior offensive lineman, redshirt senior, and he did come in and he did play against San Diego State. And, the problem with Oregon State right now is when Jonathan Smith left and you saw the transfer portal exodus, you saw so many players leave, that cuts away at your depth. And Oregon State has been, to some, surprising, but to anybody and everybody that's been watching, wildly consistent in the way that they have played, especially on both sides of the line of scrimmage in the first 2 weeks. To take that hit in your depth when your schedule is ramping up and you are going to be playing the best teams on your schedule in the upcoming weeks, this is a big hit for Oregon State, because having this happen during a week 2 game against San Diego State, now your depth on the offensive line is razor thin, and they can't afford to have more guys get dinged up and more guys nicked up. And I think that this is a big injury for the Beavs, and if not for this week, moving forward and over the course of the season.
Yeah, this isn't, Oregon State's not operating like a lower division team with 45 scholarship players, but the difference in drop-off when you're one of those teams in that transitionary period, it can be dramatic. Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State mentioned, he lost one of his linebackers, and the quote he had after the game when he had a guy come in and a transfer to replace him was, "Do you want me to be honest, or do you want me to be coach speak?" And basically dropped I'm being honest, we got him because he was cheap. And it's like, that's the reality. I think if you're looking at certain things around in the transfer portal and mobility and depth, there's a constant juggling act of what you want to do and how you want to do it. And Oregon State's in that spot right now where they can't reinforce, they can't buttress that and have that. I mean, hell, Oregon is dealing with it, and they have significantly more resources and the better potential to address those things. and it's something that they're dealing with. So it kind of paints the perspective of where the Beavs are at and how detrimental this can be to them. Like, it's great that they were able to keep Josh Gray, but you put Fuaga in the NFL, and
Tulise Fuaga has been playing. He played lights out week one.
Exactly, and so you're already struggling to replace one guy, and then you're struggling to replace other guys that have left. And what the monster kid from Colorado's come in and been above board. I think it's one of those situations where if you're the Beavs, you're just kind of hoping and praying. But on the flip side, Flavio Gonzalez is one of the most kick-ass names I've ever heard in my entire life. And so I'm just going, I'm going to root for the guy because his name rules.
Dude, one of my best friends from college, his name was Kyle, and his parents almost named him Flavius. And I still think that was the wrong call to go Kyle instead of Flavius. Flavio Gonzalez is a phenomenal name. And this guy's he's gone through it, man. He has been through 2 junior colleges. He, played last year at Oregon State, and I think it was 6 games. He's a guy that did stick around, and he's played really well through the first 2 weeks, albeit in limited snaps. Guy, it's not like you're throwing in a guy who has not played yet, right? He's played in about half the snaps this season for Oregon State, and he's an above-average run blocker. He is, through the first couple of games, he's been solid in pass pro, but still not one of your anchors. I think Pro Football Focus had him graded out as, of offensive linemen, he was the lowest graded in pass protection of any of the offensive linemen. But again, line grades on Pro Football Focus can be a little bit misleading because they don't know the intricacies of calls and protection slides and all of that. What they are doing is guy versus guy and saying and basically guessing on what they were asked to do in that protection. But on the same side and at the same token, he has played well enough through the first 2 games. Here's the deal, though. As a 60-minute game goes on and you have a guy who's already playing about half your snaps so far this year, what does that depth look like? Kyle Devan's work is going to be cut out for him this week and the rest of the season when you start dabbling into that depth a little bit more and a little bit more, because now you don't have your rotations get thinner. This is your first guy up. I mean, we've been seeing this with Oregon for the first couple of weeks, right? When you have 2 guys on the interior offensive line that are out, and Dan Lanning has said it, like, we always rotate guys in. That's the thing about line play now. It's like you don't just stick the same 5 uglies out every single play for an entire game. Nobody really does that anymore.
It's really interesting the rotation of it. They were talking about that on was that Friday night's game? It might have been Friday night. It might have been the Eagles Packers, or it was the Sunday night game. I can't remember which one it was, but they were talking about how in the past you had a DB that might stay on the field for basically the entire game, and then you might have a linebacker that would stay on the field for the entire game. Or 90+% of snaps. He's like, and they mentioned nobody does that. Like nobody. Like
your tackles will.
It was the 49er game. It was Monday night because they were talking about Fred Warner. He is one of the only guys who stays on the field at all times. Basically plays all snaps.
Well, and especially on the interior offensive line now, because you have a left tackle, and your left tackle you've got one side that you're worried about, right? You're not getting twists and stunts coming from both sides and getting banged up in that regard, but also defensive line rotations. Offensive lines have had to adapt to what defenses are doing, which is you rotate rushers in to have fresh legs in. It's like hockey line changes, right? If there's an extended drive, you're going to get fresh legs in. And offensive lines, you won't do it in the middle of a drive, but you've got to be comfortable enough to say, all right, how do we keep our guys fresh and keep our legs fresh throughout the entirety in the course of a game? If a defense is doing it, offenses have adjusted and adapted to that as well. You look at where Oregon State's been so far this season. You got Josh Gray. He doesn't move. He's not a guy that you're going to rotate in and out. He is an anchor at left guard. Volton has played 88 snaps this year. Van Wells has played 98 snaps at center. You've had Vincic, the backup center, has played 56. Gonzalez has played 77, and then your tackles, you've kind of had a little bit of a revolving door. Lichtenhan has played 114. Stark has played 97 snaps. Strand has played 87 snaps. You're seeing that rotation on the Oregon State offensive line. The thing that you got to keep your radar up on, though, they've only played 3 guards, and now you only have 2, right? Mm-hmm. So how does this look over the course of the rest of the season? I don't know. I think that in the immediacy, I don't think it's as dire of a situation because you've played Gonzalez at in a bulk of games. He's played about half of your offensive snaps already this season. So if he's playing half of your offensive snaps, you obviously feel very comfortable with him. And there. He was a name that just kept popping up over fall camp and all that stuff too. So in the immediacy, I don't think it's that big of an issue or smash a panic button if you're Oregon State. But as the game wears on Saturday, and as the season wears on, that depth and the war of attrition is really going to be tested for the Beavs moving forward, because you have to have those bodies in. You really do. And now you're down to 2 guards that you've played in games through the first 2 weeks of the season. We'll see what happens come Saturday and who the next man up is in that rotation. 503-864-6326. That be the Vancouver Ford text line. Your dollar goes further at Vancouver Ford. They treat you right before, during, and after the sale. Visit them online at vancouverford.com. You mentioned Talise Fuaga. He was one guy that really did stick out across the NFL, and it's not just a local bias. He was one of the 10 best rookies in all of the NFL in week 1 of the NFL. We'll talk about that after Rust with SportsCenter.
Got a smart speaker? It's the Fan in your office and every room. Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a SportsCenter update on 1080 The Fan.
All right, smooth as we go. This update brought to you by Big's Chicken. Try their smoked and fried wings, tossed with the perfect dry rub and served with a killer trio of sauces. Menus at bigschicken.com. First on the Fan, as Oregon and Oregon State get ready for a non-conference Civil War, bad news for the Beavers. Starting right guard Tyler Volton announced he will miss the rest of the season after suffering a torn ACL and MCL in the win over San Diego State. We'll have coverage of the game Saturday starting at 6 a.m. with the Center and the Saint Tailgate Show. Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel says Raheem Mostert will not play tomorrow night against the Bills due to a chest injury, and Devon Achane did return to practice today after missing yesterday with an ankle injury, but McDaniel was non-committal about his availability. Seahawks head coach Mike McDonald says running back Ken Walker and right guard George Fant are both day-to-day. Walker with an abdomen injury and Fant with a knee injury. The Mariners still find themselves 4.5 games back of the Astros in the AL West with 17 games remaining. Also 4 games out of the wild card spot, but the Tigers and Red Sox are in the way. Mariners and Padres tonight at T-Mobile Park. Brian Wu on the bump for Seattle. Michael King for San Diego. 6:40 first pitch on FS1. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Jeff Rust at the Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
It's coming, The Fan at Big Ten Media Day with the coaches and players you want to hear. July 23rd through the 25th on Portland's sports leader, 1080 The Fan.
The new John Deere Gator XUV lets you cut, pack, drive, scout, weld, stack, feed, pull, load, tow, spray, and haul, all in a single day. Because with the highest cargo box volume in its class, customizable features, and a towing capacity of up to 4,000 pounds, it gets the job done. You just have to get in the seat. Learn more at your John Deere dealer or visit johndeere.com/GatorXUV.
All right, sports fans, let's talk stats. 1 in 8 men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer. And of those men, many will experience bladder leaks. That's why Depend is partnering with the Prostate Cancer Foundation to encourage getting screened. Because if caught early, prostate cancer is up to 99% treatable. I like those odds. Depend is also donating to prostate cancer research for select purchases now through November. Learn more at Depend.com. From September through November, Depend is donating 40 cents to the Prostate Cancer Foundation. For Depend shields, guards, real fit products purchased in the U.S. up to a maximum of $300,000. Void in Mississippi.
Hey, it's Suk, and let's talk about your hair.
We were talking about Oregon State's offensive line taking a hit with Tyler Volton, ACL, MCL injury right before rivalry week when they take on the Oregon Ducks. In Corvallis, 12:30 kick. You can hear it right here on the Fan. I believe that pregame festivities on the Fan start at 6 a.m.
That is correct, sir.
Good Lord.
Yeah, Sinner and the Saint waking up early, getting you ready for a kickoff between the Ducks and the Bees. It's gonna be, I'm really looking forward to it. But one thing that both of these teams, I think, through the first 2 weeks, we've noticed and seen, it's been quite apparent. A lot of NFL talent, really damn good players for both Oregon and Oregon State, moving on to the National Football League. And CBS Sports released their top rookies from week 1 of the NFL's regular season. And both of these teams were represented on that list. Number 10 was Jaguars wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr. Now, I don't know, how much of that game did you watch? You watch any of that game?
I checked in a little bit just to check on the old Jags.
Did you see the Brian Thomas touchdown?
I did not.
He ran like an over route in the red zone, and so he crossed the hash and he caught it probably like halfway in between the opposite hash and the sideline in the end zone. And Trevor Lawrence let the ball fly when he was like in the middle of the field.
Okay, yeah, I just saw it. Yeah, and he just throws him open in the corner.
Effortlessly, Brian Thomas just like scampers over and just bloop, touchdown. Very similarly, there was a lot of times that I was watching that game going, he is so open. Why aren't they throwing him the ball? Just missed. Quarterbacks week 1, rough week.
Not great.
Dallas getting Marshawn Nealand coming in at number 9, defensive lineman. He had, of all rookies, had the second highest pressure rate, so good for him. Number 8, though, was Bucky Irving, running back, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, coming in, former Oregon Duck, and you remember hearing this over and over again. Todd Bowles waxing poetic on Bucky Irving and his production throughout the preseason and camp.
He feels like the kind of player that fits well with what the Bucs are kind of about now, particularly with Baker and how they're playing. Did you see the clip that came out of week 1 of Baker talking about Mike Evans?
No.
So there was a clip came out where he was mic'd up, and he said, if they don't bleeping double cover Michael Thomas, I'm throwing it, or Mike Evans, I'm throwing it to Mike. And it was like, that seems like Bucky seems like the perfect kind of utility back to just take advantage of that as teams roll coverage, as teams load up to take away Mike Evans. He is the kind of guy who can run underneath, but also be viable in the passing game. And I think he's a really, really, really good scheme and personnel fit for what the Bucs want to do.
Well, Bucky Irving reminded me so much of Ashton Genty, who we saw on Saturday at Boise State. He is definitely not 5'9". They are just little balls of muscle. Do not ever go down on the first contact.
Just bouncing off.
They run through tackles. They have incredible vision and are those like one-cut backs that they will commit, and once they find their seam, they're committed to it, and they're not going to dance back and forth, but they will run you over and snatch your soul. The only difference that we saw between, Ashton Genty and Bucky Irving is Bucky Irving never had 25 carries in a game.
Yeah. And I remember last year saying, and I knew how crazy it sounded because of how good Bo was, but how important Bucky was. I said,
no doubt.
I think it was like week 7 or week 8. I was like, I think Bucky might be the most important cog to this offense because Bo is going to do what Bo is going to do. But if Bucky Irving got going, it just opened everything up for everyone else because he had the capacity to do everything else, to fill in all those different places, to get you the hard yards between the tackles, to break an explosive on the edge, to catch a pass out of the backfield. He's that running back that can be on the field that you don't need to switch out on third downs. He's a guy that you can trust in pass pro. And I think those are the kind of things where you look at that Tampa Bay team. We talked about this in kind of like previewing this season. This Tampa Bay team doesn't have the most talent in the world. but they're really good basically everywhere. Like Baker's a top 10 and probably 10th best quarterback in the league. They've got Mike Evans, who's probably is Mike Evans the new Larry Fitzgerald, the most underrated wide receiver that's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer?
Yes, I'll give that to you, because I will say yes, because now he would fit that bill, but he's still not the level of Larry Fitzgerald is like a top 10 receiver all time.
Oh yeah, no, I'm just saying like,
right? I'm not.
His name just never comes up when you talk about everyone wants to talk about Jamar and Justin and
you're right.
Stephon Diggs, and I'm like, there's two guys in the league that I would take over him. That's it.
And this is the entirety of his career too, though. Mike Evans has never been seen as the guy who's like the number one receiver in the National Football League. But you're right, he is like a first ballot Hall of Fame talent, and production wise, he fits that mold as well.
He's never had less than 1,000 yards in a season.
Yeah, he's freaky good, and he's had some terrible quarterbacks.
That's what I mean. Like in Tampa Bay, he's never had less than. Again, his career low is 1,001 yards.
Yep. And look, they also got Jalen McMillan from UW too, who's going to be really stinking good in the NFL this year. Turns out those receivers just weren't good in college. They're really good NFL receivers too. Oh my gosh. Because Odunze, McMillan, and Polk in New England, they're kind of fitting into this mold too of like, hey, Rome Odunze is going to be a number one in the NFL. Jalen McMillan was the number 2 on that team, but he is like, you always said, yeah, he could be a number 1. Well, it turns out he goes to the NFL, and it's like, yeah, he's the number 2 on his team, but he could be a number 1 eventually. And then Jalen Polk is, God, that guy's really good, and he's the 3rd best receiver on his team last year. This year it is New England doesn't have any receivers, but that Polk kid probably is going to be a really good receiver. So turns out Washington's receiver, impressive.
Not bad.
Very impressive. But Bucky Irving coming in at 8 on the list of rookies in week 1 of the NFL. This should shock nobody. Called this shot because they have a void of talent, but Ladd McConkey led the Chargers in receiving in week 1. Now, he only had 39 yards, but 5 catches. He is going to be Justin Herbert's safety blanket in L.A. with the Chargers. So take note. Put that in the back of your mind. Kamari Lassiter of the Texans at corner. He comes in at number 6. I don't know why he's on there, to be quite honest, but he allowed 1 completion in his debut.
There you go.
I think that's pretty good.
Pretty good.
Steelers center Zach Frazier is number 5 on the list. And then you have former Oregon State Beaver, Talise Fuaga, Saints left tackle. Think about this. This is what the CBS Sports writes about Fuaga. He was one of 2 rookies unbeaten in pass protection in week 1. Only 2 of them.
Yeah. And the other one's at the top of this list.
But take into consideration they were playing the Panthers and Derek Brown got hurt.
Yes.
But the Oregon State product, Talise Fuaga, he is an insane talent at left tackle. And Oregon State, you never had to worry about what was going on the edge because of Talise Fuaga. And then on the left side of your offensive line last year, Joshua Gray, Talise Fuaga, those 2 guys, that's one thing that if you're an Oregon State fan, you've got to hope that whatever that formula was that Jonathan Smith had built up, that really, and quite honestly, he got pieces of from Chris Peterson up at Washington. He got pieces of it from Mike Riley in Oregon State. It is what the metrics that you look for when you say, all right, this is a frame of a guy that other teams are overlooking, but we can develop into, a high caliber college and NFL offensive lineman. Because if Trent Bray and then Kyle Devan, their offensive line coach, and Ryan Gunderson, their offensive coordinator, can continue to find those guys, develop them, that is going to be what sustains Oregon State football. It's what Gary Anderson obviously didn't do in his time in Corvallis. But Fuaga was one of those guys that he came in raw. They made him into and helped. I mean, they didn't make him into it. He made himself into it. But they got him to a level where he was one of the best offensive tackles, not just rookies, one of the best offensive tackles in the NFL in week 1 coming out of the gate. Granted, it was against the Carolina Panthers, but it's the National Football League. Talise Fuaga was an absolute dude. Third on this list, Xavier Worthy. Turns out really fast, really good. Patrick Mahomes likes to throw him the ball.
It's useful to be dumb fast. Now, you don't have to worry about getting pressed if nobody can ever put their hands on you.
No, and as I said, when that 7-on-7 clip came out, Andy Reid's going to motion the you-know-what out of that guy. Mm-hmm. You will not be able to touch him. He's going to have he'll either be off the ball and have a yard cushion, or they're going to be moving him all over. Good luck slowing him down off the line of scrimmage. Number 2, Joe Alt, Chargers. We talked about Joe Alt. He went one-on-one, not against the Carolina Panthers. Rather, he went one-on-one 11 snaps head-to-head with Max Crosby, one of the best pass rushers in the National Football League.
Who's relentless.
And did not allow a single pressure in his debut.
That's pretty damn impressive.
I would say so.
And they said that Alt still needs to work on stuff.
And look,
as far as technique. And it's like, oh, okay. So apparently just being a 6'8", 330-pound dude is really useful.
We talked about this yesterday when you were out, but we regard Trent Williams as the best left tackle in the NFL, right? Mm-hmm. Just to, pound home how hard it is not to allow a single pressure. Trent Williams didn't allow a pressure all game against the Jets. That was the first time he'd done that since week 3 of 2022.
And he's
the best left tackle in the NFL.
Yeah. Not a very common thing to have happen.
No, and we had 2 rookies this year in Fuaga and Joe Alt who did it week 1.
Not too bad.
That's pretty damn impressive, man.
Number 1 on the list, I think, is a little bit surprising in Jared Verse because he was a guy I think that went kind of unnoticed and unsung. I mean, not unsung as a first round, top half of the lottery or top half of the draft pick, but he was a guy that typically when you talk about pass rushers, particularly in the first round, you think of guys that are going to be immediate impact. They come with a name, it's whether it's the Jadeveon Clowneys of the world or Javon Curse or, the big time names that kind of come with pass rushing. And Verse was not one of those guys. Like, he was looked at as he could put it together. He could be special, but he wasn't regarded on that same level enough to where you'd take him in front of, what would he end up going in the draft? Was it 11? No. God, I can't remember where he was picked at. No, he was 12? He was in the teens.
I don't know.
Anyways, my point being, he went out there and he had one of the highest pressure rates of the guys with volume in week 1.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a start, particularly for a Rams team that's missing Aaron Donald. Where now opponents can divide their attention. It's more of a divide and conquer situation as opposed to throwing a guaranteed double, if not triple team at Aaron Donald.
19th. He went 19th overall.
Yeah.
Yeah. And look, and he may be getting a bump based on the fact that everybody was so interested in what their pass rush would look like in LA without Aaron Donald. And when you have a guy who performs the way he did, they're like, no, that's pretty damn impressive. And it was. Because think of who he was going up against. He was going up against one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. Full stop. The Detroit Lions have one of the best offensive lines in the entire NFL. And this rookie came in and he got pressures. Now, he didn't make life a living hell on Jared Goff, but at the same time, he affected so many plays in that game that that's exactly what you want to see, and I think he gets a bump because of replacing Aaron Donald, and everybody was so interested to see what that looked like. And 2, the offensive line he went up against, it wasn't like he was going up against the Carolina Panthers, right, or the New York Giants. He was going up against the Detroit Lions, and that offensive line is dominant. He's from Florida State. Florida State, I bet, could use him right about now.
Yeah, no, they did really well in the transporter, though.
Yeah. Have you seen the latest of the criticisms about Florida State and what's coming out on them?
No.
Yeah. Let's get to that coming up because This is a doozy, folks. This is why Florida State fan, big mad right now. Danny Dusty on the Fan.
Hello.
This music probably fits for this story because you want to have some drama. Talk about the drama down at Florida State right now. Tallahassee, they're going through it.
Is it drama, though, if it's always drama? This feels like this is like calling drama on Love Island. It's like that's what you're tuned in for.
Yeah, Florida State, they're an interesting, they're a really interesting university as a whole. Just think about it. Like, they are fighting to get out of the ACC because they feel like they deserve a bigger piece of the pie. They deserve a seat at the table. The SEC reportedly is like, we don't want them. We don't want them here. But they're like, we're gonna get out. We're gonna find ourselves a home because we're better than this. We're bigger than this. Last year we got hosed out of the playoff. This year they're 0-2 to start the season, and they look disjointed at every turn. And Mike Norvell, their head coach, who wildly successful at Memphis, was seen as like this one of the young, brightest minds in all of college football when he was at Arizona State. And think about the talent that Mike Norvell has surrounded himself with. And this is something that I don't think we talk about enough in the world of coaching because of guys like Nick Saban, who has his coach's rehabilitation tour year after year after year. Go through the list of guys that Mike Norvell has had as a coach on his staff. Dan Lanning, Kenny Dillingham, Memphis head coach Ryan Silverfield, NAU head coach Chris Ball, Buffalo head coach Pete Lambeau.
Haven't all these coaches done well everywhere else too?
Southern Miss head coach Will Hall. He's had 6 head coaches and yes, they have done well. And they've all been young, bright coaches. Like, he has an eye of young talent and evaluates them and brings them along and then says, go spread your wings and fly. And they do, right? But there always comes a time for most head coaches outside of Nick Saban where that turnover happens again and again and again. And eventually you don't hit home runs every time. Sometimes you hit a single. Sometimes, hell, you may strike out on a guy. But that isn't the problem with Florida State right now. They have continuity, chemistry issues abound at Florida State. Their fan base all fired up, though, because the video that surfaced yesterday of the quarterbacks going through like mesh and read progressions, and in the background you see 2 players chasing each other with squirt guns. Did you see this?
No.
Yeah. And so this is like after practice work, and you have the quarterbacks in a team that is just struggling like all get out. And this is where Florida State fans are at right now, though. They don't want to see anybody having fun at any time, right? But there were 2 players in pads chasing each other with super soakers behind the quarterbacks.
It's full on Coach Boone. Football was fun, wasn't it? Not anymore, though, right? I mean, that's what this is.
Yeah.
But
their fan base they're in a pretzel right now.
I mean,
they loved Mike Norvell last year. They hate him this year.
I mean, there's just no I would love to see the explanation of why they've lost to Boston College and Georgia Tech, considering the talent they have. And you can go, well, DJU's not this. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
When we're looking at the talent levels of both teams that they've played, and you can talk about coaching and scheming and everything else that goes with that, it should have been so overwhelming that it should not have been a problem. And yet, here they are in this situation. It just doesn't – I can't wrap my head around it. It doesn't make any sense to me.
No, and sometimes you just have chemistry issues, right? Chemistry is a massive, massive part of football, and that continuity of guys working alongside each other and with each other, man. It's a really tough thing, and this is going to be, I've always said, like, we are going to see at some point the transfer portal is going to, where you're going to have the cautionary tales of guys that enter and they don't find their way out. They don't find that new home. You're also going to have a lot of coaches that commit to the portal and it doesn't work out, and they say, all right, we need to rethink and reframe how we build our roster moving forward, because the best teams in college football fill holes through the portal. They develop, they grow, and they retain their own talent. That's what the best programs in college football do. That's what Georgia did. That's what Texas has done. That's what Ohio State has done. You recruit, you grow, you retain, and then you fill any holes, because you don't bat 1,000 in recruiting. You don't bat 1,000 in the portal. You fill your holes through the transfer portal. I think that's where we're going to eventually get to. So, all right, 1 hour down. Hour number 2, Tyreek Hill. He is calling for the firing of the police officer who arrested him. But there's more. Danny and Dusty on the Fan.
Isaac, we're out for Langdon.
Hour number 2, Danny and Dusty with you on this Wednesday afternoon. Raining down here in Eugene, where I am. I'm down in Eugene.
It was raining here.
Yeah,
It's craptastic here. I went hoodie and pants.
Yeah, so did I. So did I.
Yeah, I'm wearing pants today, too.
Look at all of us being big boys with our pants.
I know, right?
Hoodie was a bad choice. Hoodie was a bad choice for me.
You were out in the actual elements. You needed a little weather resistance.
Yeah, the Ducks were outside for their practice today, so I was exposed to the elements. I found a little cranny, little nook that I ducked under and watched most of it. This is on me. I'm an Oregonian. I got a little cocky sniff when I looked at the weather report, and the weather report said, it'll be light rain. It was not. I forgot what light rain is in Oregon. I forgot what that was. Hand up on me, got dumped on.
The light drizzle?
Yeah. It was not a light drizzle. The light drizzle, I forgot how aggressive a light drizzle can be. So I'm down here in Eugene, as I am every Wednesday throughout the college football season. And Danny holding it down in Rust back at the fort at the 1080 The Fan studios. So thank you for being a part of our day, letting us be a part of yours. We've got a lot that we need to get to. The great Jerry Allen said he is going to sneak into this studio at some point and sit down. We can have story time with Uncle Jerry, because what a great week to have him on at some point when we've got Oregon State. The man has been on the call for, I think, 37 Civil Wars so far.
That sounds like a fair amount. We have to get his take on the Platte.
Oh, on the trophy itself?
Oh, yeah, on the trophy itself.
Yeah, I like this. I think that I like this. We'll talk to Jerry about that and this rivalry, what it means to the Oregon Ducks, and what to look at coming up this weekend as the Ducks take on the Beavers. Tyreek Hill said yesterday that he believes the officer who arrested him on Sunday prior to the game should be fired. He has elaborated on that a little bit today, and he's not backing down, but he is clarifying a little bit.
Your lawyer has come out and said that he's looking for the dismissal of the officer. What does that mean?
Gone.
So you want the officer to be
gone. He got to go, man. Because in that instant right there, like, not only did he treat me bad, you know what I'm saying, he also treated my teammates with, disrespect. He had some crazy words towards them, and they ain't even do nothing. Like, what did they do to you? They just walking on the sidewalk. So, I don't know, bro. Like, he got to go, man. Like, it's not too many times that cheaters say people got to go, but what they say on Wild and Out? Gone. No comprende.
all right. Thank you.
You knew I was going to say something crazy.
Hear how you ended that? I was going to say something crazy. Tyreek Hill calling for the officer's firing. And I think that one thing that we can all agree on in what happened when the release of the body cam footage. Now, he did say at another time that he could have handled the traffic stop better.
Yes.
Which I think we can agree on. But the officer, in terms of his role and his job to de-escalate a situation,
100%.
amplified this situation and made it exponentially worse throughout the entirety of that body cam footage. At no point did I sit there and think he's trying to de-escalate this situation. Was Tyreek Hill in the wrong? He did not react well in that moment.
Telling the cop to just go write me the ticket and do what you got to do and then rolling up your window, probably a great idea.
No, but at the same time, like, police officers are trained to handle people who are disgruntled and upset because nobody likes to get pulled over. No. Nobody likes to get a ticket. These aren't going to be like, hey, officer, so happy to see you today, And so Tyreek Hill handling it the way he did, I'm glad he showed awareness and say, I could have been better in the way he handled it. But at the same time, the officer needed to de-escalate, and he didn't do that.
No.
Whether it was with Tyreek or Calais Campbell or Jalen Phillips, all of those guys that showed up and stopped to try and smooth things over, which that's another thing, but I thought Calais Campbell handled it really well. He was backing away the entire time. He was just trying to do something that the officer wasn't doing, which was make sure that it did not turn into a situation that it did.
Yeah, and look, Tyreek Hill's transgressions are very, very minor here. Like I said, he was a D-head. Like that's not a crime.
Yeah.
The officer involved instigated and escalated at every single point during the video, and it's incontrovertible proof in that body cam that the guy was just a reckless bleepity bleep, and it's not very often that I'm going to go down that path of like they need to be gone. This guy needs to be gone. He absolutely unequivocally needs to be gone. Unequivocally needs to be gone. That the way this is. I would have a mild sense of grace for somebody who was newer to the job. He's been on the force for 27 years.
Mm-hmm.
You should be far and above better than that in that instance. I don't care what's going on with your life.
And especially in the situation where the ticket said a visual estimation of 60 miles an hour.
Yeah, but wasn't it in like a 25 or something like that?
45.
45? Okay.
Yeah.
45. So going 20 over in a Lambo.
Yeah.
It's going to catch some eyes.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure he was like, oh, this guy thinks he's something, and he was trying to prove something going in, which is, again, a problem.
Yeah.
I will 100% stand by that. That cop needs to be gone. And, And the sad part of the whole thing is
that we're agreeing with Tyreek Hill on something.
I know. Again, this is not just the Vandervoort text line says, hey, we don't need to like make Tyreek Hill a sympathetic figure. No, we don't, because he's got transgressions in his past that make him a terrible human being.
I do not like Tyreek Hill.
No. And you shouldn't.
I don't.
And that's the thing. But everything about this cop just tells me he should be gone, because it wasn't the most egregious abuse of power I've ever seen, which is unfortunate that we've seen so much worse. But this is clearly somebody that cannot and should not be in that position of power. What was disappointing to me is that none of the other officers stepped in and called. Well, one of them tried to, but then he ended up backing down because the other guy just got louder. Which
just a weird situation all the way around.
Yeah, and it was. You could hear the cop and the other calmer cop in the beginning. They go, "That's Tyreek Hill, man."
Yeah,
like
and the cop or the officer who was overstepping everything. You heard him go, "Oh, F."
Yeah. Because he knew, like, oh god, this is going to be a whole thing.
Yep, and it is.
And it is
now.
It is. And I don't know if you saw the report alongside the video that came out. The officer's legal counsel had reached out to Tyreek Hill to apologize. Tyreek Hill and his legal team declined that apology.
Oh,
so he knows he's screwed already.
Yeah.
When you're a cop and something happens, they tell you to shut up, and then the union, puts up all walls around you until it turns out, you're Derek Chauvin and you had a knee on somebody's neck and you killed a man, and then they go, he's not one of us. That's what the union's kind of there for, is to be that blue shield, and they're already kind of getting out in front of it, like, yeah, once that body cam video came out, he was screwed. So the apology tour has already started behind the scenes, and in all reality, this guy needs to go. He's going to end up getting his pension anyways, because he's been there for 27 years. But
this will be interesting to see how the rest of this plays out.
Yeah, because they're suing him.
But like I said yesterday, and I believe it, this is like the epitome of two wrongs don't make a right on either side. Tyreek Hill did not. He won traffic violation, right? 2, he didn't handle it the right way. Then the officer came over the top, and he didn't handle it the right way. We can all agree nobody was in the right here, and we shouldn't be painting, Tyreek Hill as some sort of choir boy who can do no wrong or was not at fault at all in anything that happened here. But at the same time, the officer was way worse than anything that Tyreek Hill did, and that, I think, it needs to be conveyed, and it needs to. This is why people are talking about it, is because it was a situation that you had two people who did not handle a situation the correct way. one handled it far worse than the other, though. And in this case, that was the officer by escalating it to a point that it didn't need to be at whatsoever. All right. Okay. Twitter is a dark place. It is where we get a lot of our worst day on the web, which is coming up at 1:30. But dare I say, Twitter got something incredibly right and incredibly wrong at the same time. Danny and Dusty on the Fan.
The definitive.
Twitter gets a lot wrong. Twitter gets some things right. Yeah. This comes to us via our buddy Jimmy Shapiro, and he sent along this betonline.ag Twitter, I guess, polling with Jim Harbaugh and Nick Saban out of college football. They dove into the data of who is being discussed as the best football coach in all of college football. Who do you think number one is as the best coach in college football, according to Twitter?
Kirby Smart?
Yep.
Yeah.
See, they're getting it right there.
Yeah.
And it's not even close. Like, it was Kirby Smart by a mile in this thing. And that is the correct answer. Kalen DeBoer at Alabama, he got the second most votes. Dabo Swinney at Clemson got the third most. He has won a national title. Lane Kiffin coming in at fourth at Ole Miss. Lincoln Riley, fifth from USC. Dan Lanning coming in sixth, right behind Lincoln Riley there. But where I think that this poll is completely wrong and completely off base is, where do you think Kyle Whittingham ranked on this list of the best coaches in college football?
I would hope in the top 10, but I would imagine because he's at Utah, it's in like the 50th.
No, he came in 19th. The 19th best coach in college football, Kyle Whittingham.
Think of 17 better coaches than
See,
Kyle
this is where Twitter can get something right, but also get it completely wrong at the same time. He is behind PJ Fleck at Minnesota.
God, no.
Sonny Dykes of TCU.
Look, okay, I think Sonny's on the same level as Whittingham.
Eli Drinkowitz at Missouri. Mike Norvell at Florida State.
No.
Ryan Day at Ohio State.
No.
Brent Venables at Oklahoma.
God, no.
Mark Stoops of Kentucky.
No.
Luke Fickell at Wisconsin.
No.
Brian Kelly at LSU. Josh Heupel at Tennessee.
No.
Mike Gundy,
I don't
Oklahoma
like
State.
I don't like Kelly, but he is a good coach.
I mean, for my money, if you're talking about who the best coach in college football is, Kirby Smart is number one.
Yes. Whittingham's top 5.
I would put Kyle Whittingham right behind Dabo Swinney at third.
Yeah.
Because Dabo has won titles. You can't take that away from him.
As much as you don't like him or whatever, this, that, or the other. Like, he won, not a title, titles.
But then it's Kyle Whittingham.
Yeah.
The juice that he squeezes out of that roster every single year is incredible. They may stub their toe somewhere along the way, but
even when they do, they're like the Knights of St. Denis. They gum you to death. Like they find a way, no matter what, to be a complete pain in the ass.
With a roster that is not nearly as talented from recruiting metrics or any of that to some of the teams that they play, they are always in the conversation at the end of the day. I think Kyle Whittingham and the respect that he gets is absolutely asinine. And if you think he was close in this voting, he was closer to Jeff Brom of Louisville than he was PJ Fleck at Minnesota. Kyle Whittingham.
Again, I think that's more just like, think about every program you named. They're all either in the SEC, the Big Ten, or they're more viable names from like high profile programs.
Yeah, and a likable guy too. A great person.
And great calves.
Phenomenal calves. I would still take him over a lot of coaches in a battle royale. If you were going to fight coaches, I'm still taking Whittingham over most of the coaches that are out there.
Look, when they do the old pictures during practice in the summer, the coaches are wearing the shorts. Whittingham, he could still get under a squat rack.
You're dang right.
That man is still very, very jacked. But I mean, as a coach, the way Clark Phillips III talked about him, the reverence that he had for him when we talked to him, was it 2 years ago? It really reinforced that. Cam Rising was the same way. Every person that I've ever talked to about Whittingham has been the same, in the sense of like the importance of not just who he is as a coach, but as a human being, and how that feeds into who he is as a coach. And how successful he has been at a program like Utah. It really does speak to it. And he's never wanted to leave. Like that's where he wants to be. And I think that allows him to be, because it's not that he doesn't have goals to go somewhere else, because I think his goal was to be the head coach at Utah. And because of that, I think he can be 100% authentic. Yeah. And I think that part of him and being so intrinsic to who he is allows him to be the best version of himself. And I think so rarely do you get coaches that they say they want to be somewhere and they may be 80% honest in that, yeah, they do want to be there. But there's so few coaches where who they are, where they are, and where they want to be all align at the same time to allow them to be so successful.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely does. And he's 164-79.
That's an obscene winning percentage for a coach.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And you think of everything that they went through over the last 3 years, injury-wise, with Cam Rising. Think about that. And he went 10-4, 10-4, 8-5. Great coach. Phenomenal coach. I mean, he's one of the best.
He's winning 2/3 of his games, Dusty, at Utah.
Yeah.
Over what, 20 years?
Yeah. Yep. Well, I think his first year was official. His first full year was 2005, so 19 years. Yeah. Because he took, and look, even his start of his tenure at Utah was incredible because he took over for Urban Meyer when Urban got the Florida job.
Yes.
And he coached Utah in the Fiesta Bowl, an interim coach going from a small school going to a New Year's Six bowl and winning it. Yeah, I think that's pretty good.
Keeping it
pretty
going.
Good.
That's got to be one of the hardest things to do in college football.
Yep. Built it up and ran off and has never looked back. And
Utah's never fallen off. They've never fallen off. And
they had this couple of years right when they were making that transition into the Pac-12 where they were down a little bit, but they were just building up to a roster to a Power 5 to be competitive. And look, that is the most impressive part about Utah. It wasn't like they jumped up from the Mountain West to the Pac-12 and had a couple of years and then disappeared. No, they came up to the Pac-12. It took them a while for their roster to get to the point of being competitive year in and year out. But then it's been 10 wins, 10 wins, 10 wins, 9, 7, 9, 9, 10, 10, 10, 11. He's been absolutely incredible. So even when Twitter gets it right, they find a way to get it wrong. We're gonna have to call a hot route on Worst Day on the Web.
Oh,
yeah, Jerry Allen has entered the chat.
Oh, perfect.
He is in the booth. So voice of the Ducks, Jerry Allen. We're gonna have story time with Uncle Jerry.
Perfect.
Up. And then we can do Worst Day on the Web. Maybe we hot route Worst Day on the Web to 2:30.
There we go.
How about we do that?
Let's do that.
We'll do that. Jerry Allen, voice of the Ducks, joins us next. First is Russ, SportsCenter.
Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a SportsCenter update on 1080 The Fan.
This update brought to you by A&E Plumbing, Heating, and Air, serving Portland, Southwest Washington, and the Gorge, online at aneheatingandcooling.com. It's hard to stop a train. First on The Fan, as Oregon and Oregon State get ready for a non-conference civil war, we've got bad news for the Beavers. Starting right guard Tyler Volton announced he will miss the rest of the season after suffering a torn ACL and MCL in the win over San Diego State. We'll have coverage right here, day of the game on Saturday, starting at 6 a.m. with the Center and the St. Tailgate Show. Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel says running back Raheem Mostert will not play tomorrow night against the Bills due to a chest injury. Running back Devon Achane returned to practice today after missing yesterday with an ankle injury, but McDaniel was non-committal about his availability. 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan says Christian McCaffrey was limited in practice today due to his calf injury and Achilles tendonitis. Seahawks head coach Mike McDonald says running back Kenneth Walker III and right guard George Fant are both day-to-day. Walker with an abdomen injury and Fant with a knee injury. Mariners still find themselves 4.5 games back of the Astros in the AL West with just 17 games remaining. Also 4 games out of the final wild card spot with the Tigers and Red Sox in the way. Mariners and Padres tonight at T-Mobile Park. Brian Wu starting for Seattle. Michael King for San Diego. 6:40 first pitch on FS1. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Jeff Rust at the Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
The inside story on the Blazers, Ducks, and Beavers. Danny and Dusty. Weekdays noon to 3 on the Odyssey app and 1080 The Fan.
going to start calling this Story Time with Uncle Jerry.
There we go.
when I'm down here in
I
Eugene.
appreciate you didn't say Grandpa Jerry. Thank you very much.
All right. Story Time with Grandpa Jerry. No, Uncle Jerry here as we're down in Autzen Stadium. We're overlooking every Wednesday. I'm down here in Eugene. Danny's still back up in the studios. But it's always good to bring you in. And this week is a special one because it's a rivalry week. Oregon State. And you're going to be on the call for, we were trying to do the math here, the 38th
this doesn't seem
iteration.
real. That's crazy. That's a lot of players, a lot of fans.
And you've seen some incredible games that have come through,
my
too.
Gosh, yeah. To try to remember them and put them all. One of the most famous for me will be, well, two. When Oregon beat Oregon State in Corvallis, Dino Filias, green pass, Ducks win, get to go to the Rose Bowl for the first time since Noah landed the Ark. Or it seemed like that. It was a long time. And then Chip Kelly's in and go to Corvallis again, need to beat the Beavers to go to their first ever national championship game. And they did, and those two moments probably are the biggest up there that I can remember.
Outside of Kenny Wynn's going to score, the emotion that we heard from the Oregon Ducks are going to play for the national title is your two most legendary calls that you've ever had.
Yeah, I was telling Tyson Alger earlier today, we were talking about that, and as a broadcaster, when you do something, I don't, and I don't think you do either, you don't try to plan what you're going to say in a big moment. It's just got to be real and natural. So I knew that Oregon had a chance to go to a national championship game if they beat Oregon State. I don't know what I'm going to say. It's going to be great, exciting. If it's a close game, I don't know how it's going to be. And then all of a sudden it was there, and it came out, and I just lost it.
Yeah.
I just lost it. And I was so disappointed because it wasn't very professional. I'm thinking, do a good call, count it down, Ducks are going to national, whatever way it should be. And it didn't come out that way because I just couldn't. I just lost it. So we're driving back from Corvallis to Eugene, and I'm still just beating myself up because it was so unprofessional. And the play came on. I think you guys played it from the Portland studio, and that people were calling in and talking about it. And I heard it for the first time.
Yeah.
And I went, oh, okay, that wasn't too bad. And like all the guys in the car were like, are you kidding me? That was a great call.
It was a great call.
And I accept that now. But at the time, I just felt like I'd lost control. Like with Kenny Wheaton, I'm screaming,
But I think that also is like you always want to be professional, but at the same time,
where's the fun in that?
Yeah, the emotion of the game is you're feeling exactly what the people that are listening and watching are feeling as well.
That's what I tried to do. I used to teach broadcasting when I was down in Southern Oregon to kids, and I would say, here you are. You have taken your best friend to a football game, and your best friend is blind.
Yeah.
So you're going to use the simplest terms you can. He's going to hear the noise, and you're going to tell him where the ball is, who's got it, and where it's going. This as simply as you can. So I've always thought that's what I wanted to do. I never wanted to get too overly technical about, gaps and all kinds of different defenses and offenses. So I never did. I let Jorgie do that.
Yeah.
I let you do that down on the field. But I just try to be really basic about it. And you got to realize it. When I was doing high school ball, and even at this level, the majority of fans don't understand the game.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, my silly wife, who was a cheerleader for years, asked me one day, why do they have to punt the ball away? Why do they have to give it away?
Yeah.
I said, "Are you being serious?" She said, well, yeah, why? I said, no, you're right. Well, I'll explain it one day. But most people listening, they get the basics, but they don't get the little bubble screen and stuff like that.
That's okay. My wife and I had this conversation the other day. She didn't know what a receiver was, and I was like, I literally coach receivers, and that's what I played receiver. She's like, I don't care.
That's the average fan. They just enjoy the game.
I will say though, the emotion in being a part of it, and being a part of it for so long, and it doesn't matter whether you're someone who's calling high school football or you're calling the Miracle on Ice. The emotion, I think it matters, and having your attachment that you have, I think that matters. I mean, like you can talk about the great national play-by-play folks like Al Michaels screaming, "Do you believe in miracles?" I mean, I think like having that attachment to things, that's what brings it home. So Lean into that. Come on now.
Yeah, no, you're right, and you could hear, and so this Saturday I'm going to get even more emotional.
Good.
On a third down, if they fail on a third down, I may cry. I don't know. But Al Michaels is a great example.
I would love to see Jorgie's face if that happened. Jorgie, what are you doing?
Didn't get it. Al Michaels is a great example. I mean, he was just calling it for the national audience, but he was a part of that team. His emotion was genuine. You can listen to a football, baseball game, whatever it is, and you can tell when a guy's paid. They flew in yesterday. They talked to a few people. They're doing the game. They're going to fly out tomorrow. You can tell that, and it doesn't make the game as fun or as exciting as when there's some real genuine emotion in it.
Look, Paul Allen is the radio voice for the Minnesota Vikings, and he's drove me crazy over the years. But you will never, ever, ever question his passion and love for that team.
Yeah.
No, that's good. It's a fine line to walk, because when Bill Byrne hired me, he said, and I'll never forget this, he said, you need to show your excitement for the Ducks, all right? And don't worry about somebody calling you a homer. I'm the one that signed your check. So, but after that, I realized that, you need to be respectful of other teams and players and fans. So,
All right, we had two memorable ones that you have. Dino Filia in the end zone. Ducks go to the Rose Bowl. Ducks go to the national title. I need to ask you, how do you call a fog bowl?
You don't.
Yeah. How do you that is one of the things that we're all watching it on TV, and sometimes cameras can cut through the fog. They went to low angles in the fog bowl.
Yeah.
But you don't have that luxury on radio. What did you do for those? Then you've had two of them.
We went to the sideline.
Oh, really?
Really?
So if we have a fog game, you're calling it.
All right.
So you may have to get out of the field a little bit.
Here we go. Let's get dirty.
Yeah, we just couldn't see. It's like, and I think Oregon had the plating on their shoulder pads at the time, and they shined a little bit more through the fog, and so you could see these little spots bouncing around down on the field. But you didn't know where the ball was. Really?
No way.
No, it was crazy.
Did you just throw your hands up and just say, "I wish I could tell you"?
Jorgie, can you? No, I can't see. So I can't. Who was doing the sideline? Might have been Mike Barrett. Could have been Jay Allen. I'm not sure. One of those guys was doing the sideline. We said, "Okay, can you see enough?" Yeah, we're down here, because they're not looking down through the fog.
Yeah.
And so they did it until it dissipated enough for us to pick it back up.
Holy smokes! Now we have a Oregon State game that isn't going to be played with fog because it's in September.
No turkey.
So are you still going to have turkey? Are you on Thursday or tomorrow night? Are you
just to keep it normal?
Get into routine for this game? Are you going to have turkey?
No, I didn't think about that. If they
you didn't think about food?
No. Well, yeah. We'll line up pizza, chicken, and turkey, and have some pumpkin pie just in case. But I don't care if you played this game the weekend before Thanksgiving, the day after Thanksgiving, June 1st, or February 9th. It's a rivalry game, and it's the game that means everything. It's different.
Yeah.
It won't be raining, I don't think.
I don't think it will be. I think it was going to be sunny and 72.
It's the first time in maybe 36 years that I've been to Corvallis that it hasn't rained with the wind blowing sideways.
Wow.
That's normally what is that time of the year.
Yeah, and now we're just going to have to reframe kind of all of our thinkings of how this game is going to be played, because early in the year, both teams working through stuff still, and at the end of the season, it is you have the light at the end of the tunnel, whether it's a conference championship game or bowl aspirations for either team. Now it is a complete reframing of where teams are, where they're progressing towards. And really who you are. You're still finding your identities.
And that's probably more for the fans than it is for the teams, because I think the teams are so focused on week to week. Okay, who's the opponent this week? Oregon State. Okay, let's prepare for Oregon State. Let's fix what we didn't do right last week and get ready for this game. Fans have time to stew on everything that's happened. We're not in the Pac-12 anymore. Oregon passed us. They didn't take us with them. I think there's a lot of blame given to Oregon, and it's too bad. But that's what's going to be going on in the stadium. Yeah. The game is completely separate to everything, and the reason we're playing the game this early.
All right, let's talk about this game coming up this weekend. Saturday, 12:30. You can hear it right here on the Fan. Uncle Jerry's going to be on the call with Mike Jorgensen here, and let's dive into the Ducks and the Beavs coming up this Saturday. This is Danny and Dusty on The Fan.
Seahawks football.
The Ducks, Jerry Allen, sticking around with us, hanging out with us. He hasn't kicked me out of his booth yet, and he hasn't just left yet, so we're gonna hold on to you.
I haven't seen the check yet either. You said you're give me a check.
I can't afford that. I can't afford
I'm
that.
cheap. Yes, you can. Food. That's all I need. Food. Hot dog. Okay.
We've got Oregon State coming up this weekend. Ducks. First 2 weeks, they've been working through some things. All of the excitement, all the expectations. It's been a work in progress, though, especially on the offensive side of the football. I thought the defense has been really good through the first 2 weeks. So
yeah, the defense really has held up, and they're getting better week by week. And I think before we get too much further along, this is going to be a really tough team to move the ball on. The offense, yeah, it's a work in progress. It's honest. The first game. Didn't run the ball well at all. Miscues, not a lot of good communication. And then against Boise State, the first half last week, a little bit more of that. But we talked about, I thought about the third quarter after halftime, they'd adjusted and found some things.
Yeah.
I think they shot themselves in the foot with some penalties and a fumble here and there. But I felt better about what we saw in the second half. But there's still, I think to me, the offensive line is when you insert a bunch of new guys is the last area to finally come together because of the communication that's required.
Yeah.
When you look at where this Oregon team is right now, it's always better to learn about yourself in a win, but how soon do you think it gets down the line where if some of those miscues and some of those issues keep popping up where it becomes this isn't the beginning of the season, this isn't trying to figure some things out, this isn't trying to get personnel even healthy, where it becomes bothersome or worrisome and you kind of have to start going, okay, there's some things we really need to nail down on?
Well, I think they're almost there to that point. Although there are a lot of teams in the nation already this first couple of weeks that either got upset or went down to the wire with teams. I mean, they're supposed to win by 27 and Notre Dame goes down to those types of games. So you're already at that point of the season. You don't want to wait till game 3, 4, or 5 and say, gosh, we still got issues, even though we're winning. Although Washington did that all the way last year, clear to the championship game. So this is a week when Oregon's going to be favored, and they need to clean some things up, take care of business, and get a W, and then you get a little better, go to UCLA after a bye week, and hopefully you're all on the same page then, and things are really clicking. If you get through that UCLA game and you're still having issues, even though you're getting wins, you begin to wonder, okay, what's missing here? How long is it going to take them to get there? Because I totally believe they've recruited the talent. I think the talent is good enough, and I know the coaching is good enough that they will get there. How long will it take them to get there is the question, and it's going to be another week or two before we know that.
Yeah, last week we saw explosive plays too, which is what a lot of the fan base was lamenting after the Idaho game, is not taking shots deep. We went through that for a whole week of Idaho did everything they could to take away those deep shots, but I think one thing that is really standing out is, and you mentioned recruiting of the talent, the playmakers on the outside are exceptional. Think of some of the best groups that you've seen come through here. I mean, name for name, this group is deeper than any group we've seen at Oregon.
Yeah, maybe the deepest. When you take a tight end group, throw them with the wide receivers and how well the backs can receive out of the backfield. The only thing that's been missing, Dusty, is the time for Dylan Gabriel to find one of those guys. In the second half, they were able to do that a little more. He was protected. And when you can find those kind of plays, then the running game works a little more. They complement each other. But you're right. Yeah. I can't remember a group of wide receivers that went as deep as this group is. And, I mean, Taz Johnson, wasn't a factor last week as a receiver.
Yeah.
He didn't need to be.
Was it 3 yards, I think he had?
He didn't need to be.
Yeah.
So your tight ends being, one of your leading receivers, and that's the kind of offense they're running. Take what you give or what they're going to give you, and take what you have time to get.
Yeah.
Leading up to the college football season, we went through some of the best rivalry trophies in all of college football, and some local bias may or may not have carried the Platte to the final round. I want to get your take on a trophy that isn't really discussed all too often in the Platypus.
There's a reason. I don't know what to say. I never understood where they came from.
Yeah. Well, it's a duck and a beaver just smashed together.
I know, but that's after a lot of beers. Designing that. I mean, there's got to be something better. I mean,
Well, we were reading up on that trophy. We did like a bracket of all of the great rivalry trophies, and we gave some facts about each of them. The Platypus Trophy is actually not even finished because the sculptor didn't have enough time to finish the feet on it before the game started. And so they're like, no, we need it. And he's like, okay, here it is. So it's not even a completed trophy yet. I do like the idea of the Platypus Trophy. I think we should do something, like have rocks from the mountain, have it carved out of rocks from the Oregon mountains or something. Maybe give us a little something a little bit more, I don't know, with a little bit more edge, and maybe something that's completed.
Well, maybe you could, get a big Douglas fir tree and carve it out of a fir tree.
Okay.
There's you got beavers. They chew on a tree.
Yeah.
I don't know if the ducks would do on a tree, but it's the state of Oregon. So yeah. I mean, I know. I look at that trophy and I think, oh, must have been a bad night.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the thought is good. We need that execution, and then it went missing for like 30 years too.
Gosh, I wonder why. To me, that trophy would have come out of the 0-0 tie in the Fog Bowl.
Okay.
Somebody said, "Oh man, these guys are bad. Let's do something that fits that game."
Again, I need to make it my point. I've told Jorgie I will defend his honor on the 83 scoreless tie. He had a broken leg. We all need to.
He was
remember.
not, in fact, the quarterback.
He was not the quarterback for the 0-0 tie. He came on the podcast this week, and he was asked about that game, and we talked about it, and he was in true fashion. I had to ask him, though. He said I was in cowboy boots on the sidelines, and I said, 83 Jorgie didn't wear shorts everywhere unless he was wearing shorts with the cowboy boots.
Which I hope that happened.
Yeah. So I just need to get that disclaimer out there because I've made it my mission to say anytime that game's brought up, that's not on our guy.
That's not his fault.
That's not on our guy there.
No. He was signaling in plays from the sideline, and he got quite a lot of them wrong, obviously. So you could say he was part of that.
The elements got the best of both of those teams in that game.
That was a miserable game.
Were you here for that?
I wasn't. It was a miserable game.
That was 4 years before you started, and so maybe you're the one that has kind of changed things with that rivalry.
Yeah,
game.
I'll take credit for that.
All right, there we go.
I think Bill Musgrave really is the one that gets credit for that.
Now, that's interesting. We were talking about kind of where you started. You have seen really, there's only a handful of bowl games that have happened in Oregon's football history that you haven't called. Because when you start, that Musgrave was the first one in, was it 20 years?
Yeah.
And they finally got over the hump and got to a bowl game. How have you seen kind of that elevation in the program and in the expectations of where they were then, where going to the Freedom Bowl and the Independence Bowl was a massive deal for the not just the program, but the entire university in the area?
No, we thought, I was telling Tyson earlier, you get to the Independence Bowl, and that was like the most fun, and wow, can it get better than this? And then you get to the Freedom Bowl, and wow, this is getting a little better. And I remember getting to the Rose Bowl and thinking, wow, we've arrived. It won't get any better than this. We've gotten to the Rose Bowl. Well, the next year we don't make it to the Rose Bowl. We go to the Cotton Bowl, and it's like, well, this is disappointing. I mean, but it was a big bowl game. But right after that is when some of the donors got together, and Phil and a lot of others, Ed Mashofsky, and said, you know what, if we want to get serious about this, we need to step up to the plate and build up facilities that will attract some players for these coaches. So that's when it really took off. And then, of course, Bellotti got the Ducks to that Fiesta Bowl when they really deserved to be in the national championship game. And to see it, it seems like a long time at times, but then at times it seems like it just happened over the last few years.
Yeah.
It's just been, this used to be just Autzen Stadium, parking lot, practice fields across the street on a grass field. Locker rooms down below were too small to get all the teams in, so they shared the locker rooms. mean, we've come a long, long way in a relatively short period of time.
In building all those facilities, I remember you had very angry alumni because that's where they used to park, is where the HDC and the CAS and the Mo. That used to be like the former player tailgate lot and parking lot, and they got really upset that they didn't have anywhere to go after that.
I was upset. I used to park my motorhome down there pregame, and that's where we did the pregame show. Yeah, and then they said, no, you can't do it anymore. But it's kind of a catch-22. Okay, you want the facilities so we get the athletes in here so you can have a national championship caliber team, or do you want parking? It's up to you.
Well, parking is awful nice.
It is awful nice.
Former players, they want their places to have reminisce and have some cold cold sodies in the parking lot.
There are a lot of people at tailgate never come into the game. So that's how fun that is. I've never been tailgating.
You've never been? Oh, well, I guess.
No. Never got it. Never.
That'd make for one heck of a broadcast if you did.
Live from the tailgate.
I'll just call it off the TV.
Hey, maybe there's a fog bowl coming in at some point where your services won't be required and you can head down to the parking lot.
It'd be a fun experience sometime.
that would be. Jerry, we appreciate the time, man. Thank you.
I love doing it. See you again next week, 2 weeks or whatever.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Thanksgiving's in November. I'm seeing.
Yeah, see?
It all blends together.
Oregon State.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
there it is. Jerry Allen, voice of the Ducks.
Thanks, Jerry. All right, coming up next, folks, we're going to dive into some NBA because Dusty can't stop me here in hour number 3 on Danny and Dusty, 1080 The Fan. Hour number 3 here on a Wednesday afternoon here on Danny and Dusty. Whether you're listening on 1080 AM The Fan, watching along on YouTube.com/1080 AM The Fan, or Twitch.tv/1080 AM The Fan. We appreciate you. We love you. And thanks for hanging out with us. And today I'm going to hijack the 2 o'clock hour, at least the beginning of it, to talk basketball because we are just a little bit more than 2 weeks away from Trailblazers Media Day. For those wondering, September 30th is Trailblazers Media Day. It will be from 9 in the morning till 1 in the afternoon. I will be live and on location. So I'll find a way to sneak some NBA-related tidbits in between now and then. So deal with it.
To quote the Vancouver Forward text line, did I just hear NBA stuff is coming up in week 2 of the NFL?
Yep.
All right. What do we got?
Sneak some stuff in here. A really interesting article that was done by Sam Quinn of CBS Sports where he ranked the top outwardly traded picks in the NBA right now and why it pertains to the Portland Trailblazers. There's 68 picks currently out in the ether to teams that they do not originally belong to. 68. That's a lot of picks when you really start thinking about it.
We've seen a lot of marquee players dealt over the last handful of years, and in that, you have had a lot of front offices say, this is a future me problem, not a current me problem, and
likely not even a them problem.
Yeah, where I won't be. Back in like 2019, they were sitting there like, 2025 doesn't exist.
Yeah, I won't be making these picks, so what do I care? And there's truth to that, certainly, for sure. But also, I think under the old CBA, you could do these kind of moves, and then you could kind of recover from them via superstar trade after superstar trade. See Daryl Morey. Now, with the prohibitions or inhibitions that the new CBA has heaped upon these teams, with basically a real salary cap ceiling, it's harder and harder and harder to make moves around not having draft picks, which is why you saw the Phoenix Suns the Brooklyn Nets look to exchange their picks back with the Rockets so that they had their future back, and so they could tank over the next 2 years and have their picks back with them, which the Atlanta Hawks can't do after the trade that they made for DeJounte Murray just a few years ago, and they're kind of stuck in this purgatory. The Trailblazers, in trading away Damian Lillard, got essentially the futures tied to the Boston Celtics and the Milwaukee Bucks. Of the 68 picks that Sam Quinn goes through, the Trailblazers have 3 of the top 10.
Hey! Take that, Joe Cronin haters.
And this is when you think about the value of picks, you're tying, and there's 2 teams that pop up in here. It's the Phoenix Suns, the Milwaukee Bucks. Why? Because they're both teams that are A, getting older, and B, are up against it financially. They're both second apron teams. There's no way out, and the punishments for staying in that second apron for so long are so prohibitive that teams either need to divest equity to get out, i.e. trading players, or just cutting cash, which means, again, not re-signing or trading players away. What happens when you trade away good players just to save money? Well, you're going to be not as good. And if you look at the Milwaukee Bucks, Brook Lopez is getting old. Chris Middleton is not as old, but is older because of injuries. Does anybody remember that Chris Middleton had 2 ankle surgeries this offseason?
I do remember that.
Yeah, that was a thing that just kind of came and went, and we'll revisit that when we talk about storylines going into this season. 1 ankle surgery, not good. 2 very bad. 2 in the same offseason, really not bad, or really bad. So you take a look at where the Milwaukee Bucks are positioned right now. The Trailblazers currently own or have the rights to swaps with the 28, 2029, and 2030 picks. Now, one of those picks could potentially end up being a pick that is given or sent to the Washington Wizards to satisfy the Deni Avdija trade. Now, I don't think it'll end up being that pick, but we'll see. Hopefully, it's the Trailblazers pick that gets sent out because it means they're in better shape. But if you take a look at what the Trailblazers currently own, that 2028 Milwaukee Bucks pick slides in at number 9 in the top 68. The number 7 pick is the 2030 Milwaukee Bucks pick. And if you scroll all the way down to the number 1 overall pick value, it is the 2029 Milwaukee Bucks pick. And this just has to do with what is owed versus swaps, and it kind of changes the value threshold. But it shows you that the Trailblazers draft capital, on top of owning their own picks, with the exception of a potential lottery pick between now and 2027 to the Chicago Bulls, shout out Neil Olshey for putting protections on that thing that went into another decade damn near.
So stupid.
It was dumb because of the prohibitions, but it also saved them from giving up a lottery pick because of transactions that the Trailblazers made in that era. Robert Covington.
Yep.
Not good. But and Larry Nance, which is the one that ended up getting this pick. But this positions the Trailblazers in a spot to where if let's say Shaden Sharp hits or Scoot Henderson hits, or they tank out this season and they get one of those top players, whether it's Cooper Flagg, Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, VJ Edgecombe, et al. They go into the next era and they have the building blocks going forward. They could find themselves in a Warriors-esque situation when they end up with a lottery pick in their lap when they're a 38 or 41 win team. And that's the kind of thing under this new CBA, where if they start climbing up and all of a sudden they have this very, very, very valuable asset going into that building phase, it could be kind of like adding Harrison Barnes to that Warriors team, where you're a team that should not have any business having that player, a pick that high on that team. But you find yourself in that position. Or less impactful, but maybe as important as the Grizzlies bottoming out this year with all their injuries and getting a Zach Edey who can help them reinforce their team on a very, very young and very controlled price point. Those are the kind of things that right now you go, it doesn't really matter. But in the future, could it? Or it ends up being something that's very, very valuable in that you use that as a piece to go trade for the guy that ends up being the guy. That ends up being the piece that you go get your Rasheed Wallace with. That puts you in up on a level, it puts you in contention. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been there.
Yeah, and I think that this is that hopium that all of the Blazer fans are clinging to and addicted to right now, but these are also the explanations as to why some of the moves have been made to correspond after the Damian Lillard trade, right? I mean, it is about positioning yourself to be in a window at that time where, as you said, the 2029 pick that hopefully it's your pick that conveys to the Wizards because it's the second most favorable of the draft positions, right? And you go down the road of, all right, why are all of these moves that have been made to build for the future and kind of hold on to staying? And look, what the Blazers did this year with the Advia trade, it was to stay competitive, but we all know still what the goal is, right? It's not to win games. It's to be in a position to where once you get Klingon and then after next year's pick in place, you are positioning yourself for that 27, 28, 29 run where you are going to have assets coming back your way because of those aging rosters, because of the assets that you have compiled to be in a position to where, all right, now it's winning time. And that's truly where winning time starts for the Blazers.
We'll get to more about that stuff as we get closer to the NBA season here. Which
what? I was happy with this. This was good Blazers talk.
See?
I like this.
You like that?
Yeah, 3 in the top 10. That's optimism, my man.
And those didn't include their own picks, which I would have argued that the Blazers draft pick this year will probably be one of the most valuable.
Probably pretty good.
It's probably going to be really high. So, but as we get closer to the NBA season, which again we are only just a couple weeks away. God, in a month, actually. In a month from today, I will be in Seattle for the Trailblazers at not Key Arena. What do they call it now?
That would be
Climate Pledge.
Climate Pledge.
We're
pledging
Arena.
To a better
there you go.
Climate.
Where the Portland Trailblazers will take on the Los Angeles Clippers yet again, ahead of the non-expansion that's happening in the NBA, I'm sure. Which we could find a way to talk about that sometime. But Adam Silver needs to be better at his job in that regard.
He's really bad at trying to get people to believe
they're not expanding.
That Seattle and Vegas are not the only options for expansion, guys.
Yeah, okay. It's really, really, really bad. But coming up next, we'll pivot back to the NFL. I want to talk about, weirdly enough, the Cardinals and the Giants, because there's two things that are going on, both violently different, but I think very interesting as you take a look at both these teams and some new additions to their personnel. Coming up on Dan and Dusty, 1080 The Fan. A couple news and notes coming out of week 1 in the NFL. First of all, we're on the Arizona Cardinals and their top draft pick in Marvin Harrison Jr. Despite running 36 routes, he was targeted only 3 times and caught 1 pass for 4 yards. There have been a couple things that have come out of this already. One from their offensive coordinator, Drew Petzing, but also from Kyler Murray. I want to start with Kyler first, where he says, as a quarterback, obviously, you're going through your reads. Sometimes the ball goes to him, but that's not my job, which kind of made me squint a little bit.
Yeah, I think what he's saying is my job is not to force the ball to Marvin Harrison Jr. I think that's where he's going with that. Not very eloquently put, but if he's saying his job is not to go through his reads and find the open receiver, that quite literally is the job description of a quarterback.
So I started to dig into this a little bit, and I saw the notes about the offensive coordinator. I was like, okay, but before reading that, I want to take a look at this. Seth Walder, who works for ESPN in their stats and info department, I believe he's their lead analytics writer, had this note. Okay, this is going to get real nerdy for a second. A.D. Mitchell had a top speed of 20.8 miles per hour. Xavier Worthy, 20.2. Brian Thomas, 19.8. Ladd McConkey, 19.7. Malik Neighbors, 18.9. Marvin Harrison, have you seen what his top speed was this weekend at any point in time on the field?
No.
16.7 miles per hour. That is a staggering drop-off, and it has made people wonder, well, is there something wrong with him? Because Seth Walder says there have been 1,730 games played by individual wide receivers with at least 25 snaps since the start of 2023. 1,730. If we look at the top speed for each of those players in those games, Marvin Harrison Jr. ranks 1,699th.
Yeah.
That sounds like a guy who's probably not healthy.
Well, I would also say if you take into context and consideration what their offensive coordinator said about Marvin Harrison Jr., you may get a clearer picture of it because of the fact of he said he was surprised with the attention that the Bills gave Marvin Harrison Jr. from the very first play. So if you're rolling coverage over to that side, if you're working double teams to that side, you're not going to get the vertical shots necessarily that you would get from the other guys who are getting far less attention, like A.D. Mitchell in Indianapolis. The focus in the secondary is not going to be on A.D. Mitchell. It's going to be on Michael Pittman Jr., right? It's going to be, and when you look at some of the other guys, if you're not running vertical routes, mostly what you're running is hitches and outs and quick slants, you're not going to be getting to that top speed where, Marvin Harrison Jr., his top speed is not in question, right? I think it was like 22.6 miles per hour when he was at Ohio State. Yep. He has speed. If he's dinged up and he's injured, maybe that's why you're not forcing the issue a little bit more. But there may be this element, too, of Marvin Harrison Jr. attracting eyes and giving up on plays, which is not a good thing either. I think that might be worse if he is healthy.
And that's the thing is Seth Walder highlights, they ran through all the data on wide receivers from this week. He had the 5th highest vertical route rate among wide receivers in the NFL in week 1. So he was pushing it up over the top, according to the NFL next-gen stats and tracking data. So it makes you kind of wonder what exactly is going on. We do have offensive coordinator Drew Petzing and kind of what his thoughts were from week 1 as it pertains to Marvin Harrison Jr.
I'd like to say it's just the way it kind of came to be. I think one of the things that I really try to stress with Kyler is it's not his job to get certain people the ball or worry about how a guy's doing in the flow of the game. I got to do that with the way that I call the game, and he's got to make the best decision based on the look, the coverage, the way the routes are run. So I think that just came up that way. I think that's pretty consistent with how we do things. Now, are a lot of the passes called with him kind of early in the thought process? Absolutely. So I think that just sometimes it comes up and sometimes it doesn't. And I've said this before. Sometimes you can call 10 plays for a guy and he gets the ball 10 times. Other times you call 10 plays for him and he gets the ball none. And that's just kind of the nature of the NFL game. So I wouldn't say that was forefront of his mind, I don't think, in that second play.
The interesting thing about this is we talked about it earlier about Baker Mayfield with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and what he was caught on video saying, which was, I don't care. If they're not doubling Mike, as in Mike Evans, I'm throwing him the bleeping ball. Mm-hmm. If you've got a guy who's supposed to be the thing that breaks defenses, should you use him as a decoy all the time or should you force feed him? Because I watched Matthew Stafford basically shove the ball down Cooper Kupp's throat all game on Sunday night. 21 targets. I mean, that's kind of what that guy's supposed to be there for, yes?
Yeah, yes.
No, maybe not to that extent. that's going a little further.
I think you take Sean McVay's system and Matthew Stafford, and you can kind of throw that to the side because that's what they are supposed to do with the slot receiver on the inside, and that's kind of how their offense is built, is to scheme him open and to force feed him targets. The Mike Evans one, you also have a wide receiver that your offense is built on creating those one-on-one matchups, right? And if there's not two guys on him, go ahead and let her rip. Go do it. Petzing is saying that that's not the way their offense is going to be. You know what we've heard out of Marvin Harrison Jr., though, is that if the offense doesn't turn into one where you're getting him the ball, he's going to be disgruntled very quickly.
Oh, no way. Who could have saw this
very quickly. He is going to want more and more touches as the season goes on. It's game one.
Are you panicking yet?
No.
Okay.
No. I'm not panicking at all. Even with I'm interested to see kind of what the vertical route that Waldron is talking about, or what Seth Walder is talking about, because watching that game, I didn't see him go deep a whole heck of a lot. It looked like he was running a lot of underneath stuff, and I wonder what they mean by how far you're pushing your stem upfield when they call it a vertical route, because I didn't see a whole heck of a lot of it out of Marvin Harrison Jr. Granted, I didn't watch every single snap of that game. But
you didn't have the ISO cam on Marvin?
No, I didn't. But from what I saw, it was like he was in. Look, I think there's also a lot of truth to he was getting open, and Kyler Murray wasn't throwing him the football, which that is the baffling
feels mildly
part. Is that
problematic.
If Petzing is saying, most of our calls or a lot of our calls early on, in the thought process, it is to get him the ball. And you have Marvin Harrison Jr. being NFL open, and NFL open is you have a half a step on a guy. It looked like you probably should be getting him the ball a little bit more. It will get ugly, though. And I wonder how much the drop early in the game factored into Kyler Murray just going off of Marvin Harrison Jr. because he had a drop early. And if a drop early from a rookie is going to get you no more throws your way, that seems like it's going to be balloon into a massive problem.
Yeah, because they have so many weapons in Arizona.
They have none. Except for Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, that was the weird thing about this. I was like, I figured if at bare minimum, he'd be a guy who would see 9+ targets.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the thing that I don't quite understand is I try to get in the head of, when you hear Kyler Murray say it's not my job to get him to go through that. Well, yeah, you guys got a high pick on a guy who's a Ferrari, man. Yes, you should try to get him the ball a lot. I agree. Like the more targets, the better, because they went to Greg Dortch more than they went to Marvin Harrison Jr.
Greg Dortch sounds like he sells insurance.
Greg Dortch does sound like he sells insurance, but when Dortch, Michael Wilson, Trey McBride are your other options, you should probably figure out a way to lock on to Marvin Harrison Jr. because, and again, their offense, it wasn't what plagued them in that game. It was an inability to stop Josh Allen from going into God mode and running the ball and then
diving
making
into the
his
end zone with
ridiculous throws again. But you have Kyler Murray, you need to throw for more than 162 yards because that's the one thing he does really stinking well. And he ran the ball really effectively for Arizona. I think he was their leading rusher in that game as well. But you got to find a way you're going to start to have to force feed Marvin Harrison Jr. because you had Trey McBride 9 targets, Greg Dortch 8 targets, Marvin Harrison Jr. 3, and James Conner, your running back out of the backfield, 4 targets. You had 3 guys with more targets than Marvin Harrison Jr.
Greg Dortch sounds like the assistant manager and son of the owner at Der Schnitzel House.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's a good pull, 100%.
Going to get some great schnitzels there.
I like that. Coming up, we will dive into what is or what isn't going on with the Giants and why people feel bad for the Giants. But first, we're going to have our worst day on the web. We bumped to 2:30 with story time with Uncle Jerry. This one's been sitting there for a little while. We had to let this one cook because this one's, look, I love an absolute gold medal Petty Olympian. And we'll get to that and more coming up here. But first, it's a Big Kahuna with Sports on Update.
You ever had a Big Kahuna burger?
Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
This update brought to you by Vulcan Design and Construction. Check out their award-winning outdoor living designs or schedule your free design consultation at vulcandc.com. First on the Fan, as Oregon and Oregon State get ready for a non-conference Civil War. Bad news for the Beavers. Starting right guard Tyler Volton announced he will miss the rest of the season after suffering a torn ACL and MCL in the win over San Diego State. We'll have coverage of the game this Saturday right here on the Fan starting at 6 a.m. with the Center and the Saint Tailgate Show. Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel says Raheem Mostert will not play tomorrow night against the Bills due to a chest injury. Devon Achane returned to practice today after missing yesterday with an ankle injury, but McDaniel was non-committal about his availability. 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan says Christian McCaffrey limited in practice today due to his calf injury and Achilles tendonitis, but the running back says his mentality is that he's playing this week. Seahawks head coach Mike McDonald says Kenneth Walker III and George Fant are both day-to-day. Walker with an abdomen injury and Fant with a knee injury. And Bears receivers Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze both sat out practice today as well. Keenan Allen due to a heel injury and Odunze with a knee injury. If the Mariners want to make the playoffs, they better get up on it, act like they want it. They still find themselves 4.5 games back of the Astros in the AL West with 17 games remaining. Also 4 games out of the final wild card spot with the Tigers and Red Sox in the way. M's and Padres tonight at T-Mobile Park. Brian Wu on the hill for Seattle. Michael King for San Diego. 6:40 first pitch on FS1. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Jeff Rust at the Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
The Fan is live on YouTube and Twitch. And now, Window Nation brings you on-demand videos. Watch Window Nation's window into 1080 The Fan. It's time for today's worst day on the web. With Danny and Dusty on Odyssey and 1080 The Fan.
That sucks.
It's well documented. I'm violently petty.
Yeah, you are. And I love it.
And look, it is what it is. I have mentioned before, one of the guys that worked for me years ago when I was a manager at a call center, I told him to get off his bleeping cell phone. He didn't want to listen to me, so I took his cell phone and I put it on Craigslist with a picture of a piles. When I say piles, I mean like inside the void of a semi-truck, filled to the brim with raw copper, and said, "I've got scrap copper. Would you like it? Please call me."
Nasty.
For free. His phone did not stop ringing for 3 days. Kept him off his phone though.
Probably did.
He had to turn
right
it
off
off.
that thing.
He told he was so angry about it. But afterwards he was like, that was probably one of the most insanely, ridiculously funny things I've ever seen. He's like, he goes, the people that were calling me, he's like, I started answering the phone just because. And they were all unhinged tweakers.
Of course.
All of them. Like you can hear them scratching their face, like, how much that copper you got? It was perfect. So when I see a good petty tribute, particularly involving a phone, boy, do I love it, because we have what may be the pettiest and best breakup revenge I've ever seen.
Can's mother has been forced to block dozens of calls after her ex-partner allegedly took her phone number and plastered it on poles here around the CBD, telling people to call up and impersonate Chewbacca for a chance to win $100.
This would be the most childish breakup I've ever had. Like, all he had to do was be mature and go, I don't love you anymore, I want to move on.
The calls have been waking her and her 3 young children up at odd hours in the evening, and they're yet to stop.
I won $500.
Well, I'm getting phone calls at really strange hours of the night, about 1 o'clock till 4 o'clock.
Forced to call back the wannabe Wookiees and tear down the posters.
Oh my goodness. That's a really good one. That person nailed it.
It's so. That's Tarzan.
Yeah, that guy not so much.
Yeah.
I feel like we are only getting one side of this story here. All right, I want to
mean,
hear.
if you did
I want to hear
this-
this guy's story.
Look, once you see her, the woman that's in this, I think you're on the guy's side immediately.
Oh, okay.
She looks like every Karen you see in every video.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh,
She's
boy.
younger, but if her name isn't Karen, it probably should be.
Yikes.
I'm saying
All
this
right.
knowing nothing about the entire situation, but I am 100% judging the book by the cover.
Yeah, is it a petty and childish breakup? Absolutely. It 100% is.
The best kind.
100%. Is this
Better than keying somebody's car.
Is this harmless?
It's a mild inconvenience.
Yeah, turn your phone off. Just turn the phone off.
You probably need to disconnect from the world anyways. You just got to break up.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, Bumble doesn't sleep though, bud. She's back on the market. Maybe she got to check that Bumble. Those
I don't know how I know
Bumble
this.
Rumbles.
Something Bumble rumbles, huh? Okay.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's what they call them on Bumble when you get a notification.
Well, I thought that's what kept Danny out yesterday.
I say that's what kept me out, was the old Tumble rumbles. But I saw somewhere that Tinder's share of the dating industry has dropped drastically, while Hinge is up like 14%. So I don't know where Bumble sits in all of this now.
I think Tinder is they took that hit over just relentless creeps, right? Hinge, didn't we learn our lesson with Hinge based on the Commander's VP of content that went on the Hinge date and got old honeypotted?
Yeah, well, maybe that's what it is. People are going there because they want to see if they can get some more honeypots. That's where they can find the executives that are going to be completely dumb trying to impress somebody to get laid.
But isn't this the history of dating services though?
Yeah, they know they go to their rise and then they crater because what was the original? Match.com, right? That was like the OG.
Yeah, they had a formula for people.
Or eHarmony.
eHarmony, yeah.
Was that
Dr.
guy.
Drew?
No, that was the
another
old
doctor.
guy, the old white guy with white hair was eHarmony.
Oh, that really boils it down.
Well, yeah, no, yeah, well, at the time, Dr. Drew did not have white hair. This guy was older.
Yeah, Dr. Drew was still doing Loveline with Corolla at that time. You know, that was a hell of a show.
Yeah.
On our sister station, 94.7.
Yeah, not a show you could do today.
Right.
Yeah,
not a show you could do today. 100%.
I think it's got a space.
Yeah, I
think it's got a space.
Not on public broadcast.
Oh, I remember back in the day, early on when my wife and I were dating, there was a late night show. I think it was based out of Canada, and I forget the lady's name, but people would call in looking for like sex advice and stuff. And this lady routinely, she just had the toys all out over the counter.
It was Dr. Ruth?
No, it wasn't Dr. Ruth. She was Canadian. I forget what her name was, but yeah, it was like she got graphic with those toys too up there, man. So yeah, go Canada.
And then look, they get a lot of problems up there, but they're not.
You know, that's more telling about your and Mrs. Rust's early love life than anything else. There, I think you weren't anticipating to tell us as much as you just did with that story, Russ.
Well, hey, we are 10 days away from our 22nd anniversary.
Hey,
so.
Hey,
guess we did something right there.
Well, I guess more people need to watch
Dr. Laura.
No, it wasn't Dr. Laura either. No, because that's Dr. Laura Schlesinger. No, it was. I'll try to find it during the break.
Vancouver Ford text line. I met all my ex-wives.
Yes, Sue.
Sue Johnson?
Yes, it was Sue.
Okay.
Yeah. There we go.
Sex talk with Sue. That's what it says
there we
here.
go.
Vancouver Ford text line chiming in very proudly right now. I met all my ex-wives on Tinder.
Yeah, that's right.
eHarmony didn't die. It just went to the way of Facebook, and all the boomers use it. I thought it was like old people meet. So again, speaking of funny things, somebody in a revenge got me by putting me on like an elderly singles website, and my email just started blowing up.
Look at this young whippersnapper.
And I was like, they put down there that I was hungry for some. Yeah. Like me some silver foxes.
Yeah, Danny likes mining for silver. Huh?
Yeah. And my inbox blew
Step into
up.
the cougar den.
And again, reminder: old folks' homes are the capitals of STDs.
Yeah, they're a giant petri dish.
It's
My college capstone, we had to do a profile of somebody at an old folks' home, and that was one of the things that they told us when we were getting our. You know, they were integrating us into the population, as it will, into Gen Pop of the old folks home. They were like, I don't know if you guys know this about retirement communities and assisted living homes.
They don't even use the
still
loofahs on the
frisky.
doors. It's everything goes.
You got
everywhere.
Mildred going through her pill box. Okay, this one's for syphilis. This is gonorrhea. This is herpes.
Yeah, they don't actually treat it. It's just get accepted. Also, the Vancouver Ford text line. Can we open up the phone lines and call them with our best Wookiee sound? I think that's the exact reason why we don't have open phone lines. It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah. That one's not bad.
Yeah. Mine's okay. It's just a little.
Yeah, see, I've never been able to do it. I'm not even going to try.
It's hard to get the high one.
Yeah.
It's easier to do the low one. The yeah, see,
and that's actually
chewy. The lower one's easier to do. It's the higher pitched one. That's like true Wookiee talent is when you can do like change between them.
Yep.
Dusty has no idea what we're talking about because he still hasn't seen Star Wars.
No.
I'm sure he's generally aware of the existence of Chewbacca.
I know the sound.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with the sound. The
Vancouver Ford text line is being ruthless right now. Num 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 num. That's Danny on the oldfinder.com.
Well, I think it's all the old ladies too because they took out their dentures.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, I feel like that'd probably be better.
To quote James Franklin, that makes my skin crawl.
Makes Danny's toes curl though.
Come here, gummy. All right, coming up next, I don't know how we pivot out of this, but we're going to talk some more NFL and why one team is feeling sorry for the New York Giants. Danny and Dusty, Tenny the Fan.
Oregon Ducks
watched the New York Football Giants this week, and first of all, I'm sorry. Why would you do that to yourself? They're very bad. Dare I say they might be the worst team in the NFL?
I mean, they're there.
I think it is a very close race between the Panthers and the New York Football Giants. But the Panthers,
they supposed to
get my
suck.
nod. They get my nod
Yeah.
for being the worst team in the NFL because there are times where Daniel Jones can look functional. We're not seeing that through 1 week with Bryce Young.
Which is interesting because Vikings linebacker Jonathan Greenard was asked about the game and his thoughts, and he said, we kind of started to feel a little bit bad for him.
Yep.
Talking
I
about
bet.
Daniel Jones in the Vikings win over the Giants. It was a mauling. It was disgusting. It really wasn't that close. I don't know how that was a 1.5 point margin. That was an insane line, even with Sam Darnold back there at quarterback, because the Giants are dysfunctional. And then coming out from his press conference this week, head coach Brian Daboll of the Giants was asked what he wants the New York Giants offense to be. He replied, scoring points.
Oh, hey. That seems like a good. That's a good. That's a good
goal,
bar
right?
to reach.
It's a good one, right? He goes, how do
they
we
scored 0 touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean Iowa manages to do it without doing much of that.
You're not wrong, which is their identity is that
college football, more special teams touchdowns, more defensive touchdowns.
Sure,
valid.
Sure. But also we had a 33% kick return rate, which is the highest they've had in 7 years.
All right.
So hey, maybe some special teams juju there. He was then asked how to get Malik Neighbors more involved. He said, throw him the ball.
That's a really good. Hey,
he's sharp.
Maybe Arizona should jump on that train. And I went and I watched every one of. We were talking Marvin Harrison Jr. earlier. I went and watched every single one of his snaps. Somebody on YouTube just went and clipped every single one of his snaps. He didn't run very many deep routes, and when he got double covered, which was on most of the time that he ran past 10 yards, he gave up a lot. And so that he was not moving fast, but he was open so many times.
Yeah, I openly questioned this when we talked about this ahead of the NFL draft and whether or not you had Marvin number 1 overall or Rome or Neighbors, whoever it was. I was on the I want to go with Rome Odunze because I think he's more like Mike Evans and Larry Fitzgerald in the sense of he's just going to show up and do his job.
Yep.
Where you have an explosive quarterback, and I don't just mean explosive in playmaking, but I also mean in mentality, and pairing a wide receiver who was already becoming problematic before playing a second in the NFL with a quarterback that was problematic the second he got to the NFL just seems like a very dumb idea, especially for an organization that has been nothing but problematic from the top down forever.
Yeah, I mean, Rome Odunze is like the Marty McFly Toyota trucks that you still see driving around now. Like, I mean, that movie's 40 years old, and you still see those Toyotas driving around. Marvin Harrison Jr. is a Ferrari, and you don't see him a lot, and they break down often.
I thought he was a Maserati.
They're really expensive. Maserati Mav. So one of my favorite Gus-gasms. Yeah, but back to what you were saying about the Giants. Scoring touchdowns is important because I went and I looked it up. They were wearing their 100-year anniversary uniforms that
the Montreal Canadiens
were not great. Their helmets were kind of cool.
Yeah, the jerseys are ugly. Look like they're playing hockey.
Yeah. Their opener